help with that.
Yep, I just throw it all together. There we go. It says we're on Facebook. Hopefully we are. So, alrighty. So, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, we are.
All right.
Husband's fixing the computer. So, for those of you that don't know us, I'm Anitra Jump. I'm one of the admins of Amazon FBA sellers, and this is Nick, my husband. He's the other admin, and then we have Paul with us, who is an Amazon. Not only was he an Amazon seller, he's also an attorney and an advocate for Amazon sellers across the U.S.
Yeah, Paul's been a big help this week. And last week, you kind of hit the fan in our account. I know that we've not only been suspended, but we've also had a letter from our attorney general, and we thought bringing awareness to this and helping other people who might have similar questions, and you know, using ourselves as an example just to help other people out might serve the group. So, Paul, why don't you introduce yourself and tell them, you know, not only who you are, but who you're with and the kind of things you're involved in right now.
Sure. So thanks so much for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Paul Rafelson. I'm an attorney for Amazon merchants. I kind of just practice Amazon law. I kind of wear two hats. I have a private law practice called Ecom Attorneys and Seller Basics, which is a sort of a, you know, practice focused on, you know, helping Amazon clients with what they need. I have a partner, Jeff, who's a 7-figure merchant to seller on Amazon, who kind of runs our suspension practice, and we kind of just handle everything from IP, corporate law, tax law. And I sort of became known in the space initially under the sort of the tax law, because that's how I started helping Amazon sellers, was that a number of governments, kind of like they're doing with these subpoenas, were going after people, you know, claiming that they owed all these back taxes for sales tax. And, you know, having spent most of my life as a corporate tax litigator for these big companies like Microsoft and Walmart and GE, I just kind of thought that was wrong and was asked to do a blog post. And that blog post sort of snowballed into a law practice. And then in addition to my law practice, I have this thing that I do as a volunteer, which is I run a trade association called the Online Merchants Guild. And the purpose of the Online Merchants Guild is to sort of be an advocacy arm or advocacy group for Amazon sellers. And so, well, not just Amazon sellers, excuse me, for e-commerce sellers, because, you know, really we look at issues that affect Amazon, eBay, Shopify. We look across all the platforms. So it's just that a lot of our members are Amazon merchants, because we were sort of formed it on the basis of sales tax, and, you know, started writing an amicus brief for the Supreme Court case Wayfair, and we're still advocating on sales tax issues involving Amazon. But, you know, we do a lot of things. We lobby for, you know, pro-seller laws and various states and federal level. I was just down at I was meeting with Congress on the 3rd of March at a congressional hearing on sales tax fairness for Shopify business owners. So we just kind of, you know, take on the issues that are important for Amazon sellers, and to the extent that we think, you know, it needs a national platform, that it's something that we should all be advocating for as a group. We take it on. I try to get it to go through the Online Merchants Guild and do whatever can be done to help fight for Amazon, for, again, e-commerce merchants. You know, this is one of them, this issue with the subpoenas. You know, we started getting them through the law firm with our Seller Basics members. You know, they're subscribed to the program. It's like $99 a month. And so anytime, you know, we tell them, it's like, part of the deal is, when you're a member, if something happens, you just give us a call and we get on the phone and we chat about it. Like, that's part of the subscription fee. So you always can run something by a lawyer, whether it's, you know, reactive, like a letter from the government or from another seller claiming infringement, or if you have a question about your business. And that's kind of how this happened, as we started getting contacted by our clients about subpoenas from various states.
Find that the other e-commerce sites that are out there are as difficult to navigate legally as Amazon is, or are there sellers across multiple platforms who are having kind of the same issues as Amazon sellers?
You know, and it always depends. You know, every platform has its own issues. We've had merchants who can't sell products on Shopify, for example, like they're blocking them from selling hand sanitizer right now, even though it's at a legitimately fair price. It's just like a blanket block on any websites that sell those products. eBay is always a little different than Amazon, because with Amazon, you often have to deal with the issue of FBA, which, it's just another layer of control that Amazon often exerts, but not a required level of control. So, I mean, a lot of what we argue with Amazon certainly could be transferable to eBay, but you do have to know the nuances of eBay, and that is a little different, in how they run their storefront versus Amazon. But, there's a lot of overlap, but Shopify definitely raises different issues. Shopify is, one of the reasons why Amazon and eBay and Etsy are really interesting to me as a lawyer who specializes in, before I was in Amazon law, I was, like I said, I was doing corporate tax law with a lot of emphasis on state and local, is that there's certain constitutional law issues that come up when you're selling on Amazon that, we see in the state and local tax world, and probably not many other areas of the law, such as the Commerce Clause. And, with Shopify, some of that goes away. There's a little bit more of a direct, at least the courts have found that with Shopify, you're a little bit more directing your activities towards the state and create a due process nexus, which is technically a different issue. It's more your store when you sell on Shopify versus Amazon, which is a legal issue. We can, we'll get to that later. So it does vary. Shopify is a little tricky, and does in some ways makes it scarier. Just sales look at tax alone, right? I mean, if you're doing 5 million,
I don't want to look at taxes.
Yeah, but it's a good example though, because like if you're doing 5 million on Amazon, right, in 40 out of the 40, 39 out of the 45 sales tax states, Amazon's handling the sales tax, so you don't even have to worry about whether the government's coming after you or whether you need to be registered. Whereas, in most states, whereas if you're doing it on Shopify, you're theoretically could be held responsible for the sales tax, and that's extremely expensive to comply with. It's it can cost people. We had people testifying before Congress saying they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on 50 state compliance and annual upkeep of 100,000 plus the time that they're dedicating. So it's way more complicated, and that's actually one of our points, is that the states are so really don't understand the implications of their actions, to the point that they're actually driving people to become reliant on Amazon, which is exactly what Amazon wants. And it's bad news for Shopify or other e-commerce website platforms, because, if people are going to opt in for the marketplaces because there's a certain level of protection, then they're not going to want to have sales direct to the consumer, which we think is bad for we think people, all things being equal, people would rather have 5 million on Shopify than Amazon, because, you keep more of the money. It's your store, it's your customer that you can market to. So, we generally think that's a bad policy and not the way. And that's where Congress can come in and really help reshape the laws, so that we want to go back and encourage people to have their own websites and be successful in Shopify.
Yeah. Now you have a really great analogy as far as Amazon goes, where you compare Amazon to a mall, and how it tries to be a mall and tries to not be a mall. So can you explain that so people get a better understanding of exactly how third-party sellers fit into Amazon's ecosystem? Yeah.
And how different it is from Shopify, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it's something, again, with the sales tax issue, everybody, like the tax software companies, are like, oh, you need to register in 30 states because Amazon has a warehouse there. It was the same observation that, wait a minute, I'm not actually a retailer, because when you sell on Amazon, you're really not selling to the customer. You're effectively a supplier. And so I would say, look, there's like an interview of me on CNN making this point when we were talking about the antitrust issues, where I kind of said, look, compare Amazon to the Mall of America, and, how in the Mall of America, every independent store has their own corporate logos, their own, independent autonomy to be their own store, their own customer service policy, their own return policy, their ability to tell the customer to skip the mall and shop online next time. All those things that independent retailers can do in a mall, in the Mall of America, you can't do on Amazon. So, in effect, despite Amazon likes to say they're just the mall, it's like you're nothing like an actual mall. You're actually the store. And there's a serious implication there, because a lot of the laws that sellers get stuck with is, whether it's tax, whether it's price gouging, whether it's, I'm being counterfeited. A lot of this is happening because Amazon's arguing, hey, it's not our store, not our problem, right? Like, not our circus, not our monkeys. But it is. And factually, I strongly believe that it is Amazon's store. I think, like I said in the letter that I published, we'll get to, the Supreme Court case on the same issue dealing with Apple from less than a year ago, May of 19, where, Apple tried to make the same argument, say, hey, our app store is just a mall for the individual app developers who are kind of like their own little stores. And the Supreme Court just found that to be a completely ridiculous argument, and kind of made it clear that, Apple's trying to say all the things that retailers are responsible for, they're not responsible for because they call it a commission instead of a markup. And the court just basically said there's no difference between a commission and a markup in this context. Like, it's the same thing. And so, I feel good about that argument because it's what we've been saying all along. And it's just, it matches the reality. It's like, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck, right? It's a duck. You can try to contract your way out of it and say, oh, we're not the duck, you're the duck. But that doesn't usually work in the law. We look to this as substance of things, not these contractual formalities of, because that's just, Amazon trying to conveniently change things so that they can weasel out of things, like being liable for products when they hurt people, and saying, oh, we're not liable for the harm that this caused the person because we're just a mall. It doesn't work that way. You can't just, because and it makes sense, because if it did work that way, everybody would do it, right? Why would Walmart ever operate a store in any state, right? Why wouldn't they just operate marketplaces and call it Walmart Marketplace and just call every individual supplier its own retailer, right? Like, that Apple's really selling you this iPad. Our cash register is just facilitating the sale in our marketplace. I mean, it's a load of crap that would never work, but, you're dealing with some negative forces. You've got governments that absolutely will just do anything for Amazon. And it's really sad, but we've seen it over and over again. That's just like, whatever Amazon wants, the government just buys it. And then to some extent, governments that don't actually understand how Amazon works, and they don't understand how marketplaces work or supposed marketplaces work. And so they're going off of Amazon's word, even if they don't necessarily intend to give favor to Amazon. So, we're up against these negative forces that we're trying to overcome. And that's, again, why, one of the reasons why online merchant school is so important, because we need to have that voice out there that's counterbalancing Amazon's nonsense, right? That, that we need to have that, and that needs to grow and get stronger. So that's the point. And yeah, so, that's one of the challenges we face on a regular basis.
And before we go any further, I want to tell everybody that's watching that you've got to download this letter. It's an open letter to states attorney generals that you put out. We posted it in the group, and it's just brilliant. It's full of, I think it's 12 pages long.
Yeah, it was long. Yeah.
But it's wonderful, man. And I know that if I'm watching this and I didn't have that cheat sheet letter and I'm rewatching this, I'm pausing it and I'm like, oh man, that's a great point. That's a great point. My pencil's moving over here. This letter makes it a lot better. And just so make sure everybody gets this and downloads it, because it's amazing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. No, I put a lot of, like I said, once I kind of realized like this has got to be something more than just, us helping individual clients, that this is becoming, a real problem across the states, and, how aggressive they're getting. And, since speaking with you, it's, I think we had 4 or 5 states, and then, Washington joined in, and, they're starting with cease and desist letters. We don't know where they're going to go, but, I fully don't expect Amazon's home state of Washington State, not DC, to take, although I guess both Washingtons are technically like Virginia, but I don't expect Washington State to certainly take our side on this. I certainly expect them to side with Amazon as they have in the past. It's the home state of Amazon. So, it's important that we have, start getting the message out there that there's another story to this price gouging that's not being told, which is, how Amazon sort of kind of set us up and sold us out for their own benefit, and misled many of us. And, the news articles love to focus on the periphery of, oh, they sold toilet paper for $700, but that's not what we're talking about. Okay. Yeah. We're talking about, first of all, states that are imposing laws that don't even require a state of emergency, right? some of these states don't have state of emergency laws, and they're saying it's illegal to sell something for 1,500% profit. Well, I was a retail arbitrager. I still have a basement full of crap. I can still retail arbitrage if I had the time. Okay. And once in a while I do list something. I have a walkie-talkie I bought at Walmart for $2 on clearance. I sold it for $40. So that's an insane amount of profit. And certainly enough to be considered price gouging under what some of these states are doing. So, you know, and we're hearing it from everywhere that, you know, people are afraid to sell video games. They're afraid to sell peanut butter. They're afraid to sell, you know, as I sort of joked in the letter, people are afraid to sell travel pillows as if there's any demand for travel pillows right now. But I mean, it's that scary that people don't know what they can or can't do. And that in and of itself is a violation of the Constitution, because you can't have that level of vagary be the normal, especially when it comes to interstate commerce, which is something the states really aren't allowed to dip into.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think so often as sellers, it's really easy to feel like you're completely alone. Nobody's advocating for you, and you kind of have to get through the muddy waters by yourself. And I think that's really what appealed to us with the Online Merchants Guild, is the fact that you're paying it forward. You know, we've been sellers for, I think, going on 15 years. And so often it's like we've just had to do so many things by ourselves. And until recently, when you realize that there are groups out there who are trying to band together and share information, and then to find out that you had the Online Merchants Guild, where it's like, you know, let's put our money where our mouth is. You know, let's help support other sellers and all band together, because doing it by ourselves is not going to work.
And there's so much heart behind that, and knowledge, and that's a rare combination these days, that it's informed heart behind this letter, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And that's so important. And it is hard. Like, I mean, and it's hard for my own selfish reasons. When I see governments impeding on constitutional rights, and these are not the traditional like constitutional rights we think about, which are, you know, bad in their own ways when they get trampled on. These are ones that you don't typically think about, right? Like the Commerce Clause, right? But it impacts our ability to make a living and become self-reliant, right? I take it personally, because that was me. I was doing this in law school, and I know what you're doing. You know, my wife used to, funny enough, work for Seller Performance like 10 years ago at Amazon. I mean, it's like, I know what we do. And so this was a personal thing to me. And so I want to take it on. So yeah, it is from the heart, because it's for my own selfish reasons to want to just stand up against constitutional infringement in a way I can. This is what I know. It's an area of the Constitution I deal with regularly. I teach it in New York. I teach a law class on tax law and it's pretty much constitutional law and state and local taxation course. And I'm happy to do it. But the bigger picture, what I also bring to this is that my understanding coming from, you know, huge corporations, is that when governments do things that are bad, companies band together, right? I give a classic example. It's a tax one, is when, you know, Chicago was trying to pass the sugar tax on sugary beverages. Immediately you had Coke, Pepsi, Starbucks, all of them banding together, forming a coalition called Can the Tax, which involved bringing an injunction, which actually didn't work for them, which was no surprise. They didn't really have a strong argument there, but then they lobbied to get the law changed anyway. But, you know, you have everybody banding together. Like I always tell people, the Wisconsin cheese farmers have an association. There's just certain issues that we should all be banding together and taking a part on. And I do want, you know, my struggle with the organization is that we still kind of lack in leadership, because I love taking on the issues, and I love, you know, acting as sort of liaison lobbyist with the lobbying firms when there's a need to lobby, or bringing actions when there needs to be an action, or taking on the opportunity to write documents like the letters I wrote, or the Supreme Court briefs, or whatever needs to be done. But we really do need leadership from the seller community in the organization that sort of adds an air of legitimacy, because I still think there's a lot of people out there who have no idea we exist, don't know what we do. And there's a lot of people who lead large groups who, you know, feel threatened by us, even though I try to explain the difference between Online Merchant Skills and what you do is, like, you're teaching sellers how to be successful on Amazon. We're just trying to make sure the window of opportunity to be successful stays open. It's a very different angle that we're focused on. We're not in competition with you as with people who teach courses or those things. We're just we're helping you as the teacher as much as we're helping the students. We're just trying to create that unified front of, we're the Amazon sellers, and we have the potential to be so powerful if we can kind of pull it off. But we definitely need help with leadership, and certainly I'm open to people who really want to. And I know nobody has time, but if you're one of those people who likes the idea of being involved in advocacy and wants to be a part of leadership of Online Merchants Guild, let me know. We're looking for people who can do that, because we really, this is a seller organization. I really want it to be run and controlled by the sellers. That's my goal, is to really turn it over to you guys once it gets to the point where it can be self-sufficient and have a board of a mix of sellers from different backgrounds, different areas, and just really run this thing right and be a force, because again, it has the potential. I mean, there's so many of us in the United States and we all vote. So, I mean, to say that Amazon has all the upper hand and we have none is kind of ridiculous, because I mean, the numbers say we're the voters, and there's a lot of us, and kind of like the AARP with retired people, one of the most powerful lobbies in the country. If everybody was a part of this and did something, we would have a potential to be extremely powerful.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there. It seems like once you put yourself out there that you're an Amazon seller, you open yourself up to a lot of criticism, a lot of even other sellers coming after you. So it feeds into Amazon's narrative to say that, to keep things like the Amazon forums open, where everybody just starts bashing on each other. And it takes something like these Facebook groups. We're part of the Amazon seller tribe. If we hadn't have been part of the seller tribe, we wouldn't have known that there were other people who were going through the same stuff we were going through. And so
without the seller tribe, we wouldn't be in the Online Merchants Guild.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have known about Paul, and that seller tribe has been invaluable to us, not only for the relationship with Paul, but the relationship with the other, just infinitely valuable. Can't say enough about that.
And we love the tribe too. I love Gary. I mean, the amazing supporters of both the Online Merchants Guild and of our firm. I mean, we launched our Seller Basics plan. I think Gary was just, both Gay and Gary, but Gary, coming from the insurance world, was just such an absolute advocate. I mean, he did a better job of marketing it than we did. And he's been extremely supportive of us.
He knows his stuff.
Yeah.
And no, we really appreciate it. We love the tribe, and we have a lot of clients from the tribe, and we have a lot of members from the tribe. And this is one of these issues right now that we're dealing with, where tribe, this is right in your wheelhouse. This is one that affects you more than probably most other sellers, resellers, wholesalers, but in arbitrage, probably more than anything. Because the states are doing is threatening arbitrage, because these laws are just so, it's a state of emergency now, but like I said, none of these states don't even have it. So no, I appreciate all the support we've had from the tribe, and look forward to continuing to work with the tribe. I think they do a great job.
Absolutely. And that's part of, one of the reasons why we brought you on here, is because, we had direction from being in the tribe and having other people who were going through the same things we were. And we really wanted to bring that to, the group of people that we happen to have kind of adopted with this group, with the Amazon FBA sellers. And so for people out there that might have one of these letters, or they might be suspended right now for price gouging, what is the first thing that you would tell them to do, or the first thing you would tell them not to do once they get, one of these letters from the Attorney General, or they get suspended for price gouging?
Okay, well, if you get suspended for price gouging, I would be very careful about how you address your suspension. I'm not trying to promote the firm, but we do have, like I said, we've been dealing with a lot of these since they first started. But you do want to be careful about what you say, because it could be deemed an admission. Assume anything you write in a plan of action on this topic could be, submitted by Amazon to the government, because we can tell Amazon's obviously to the government. So, so it becomes admission. There's no privilege or any type of, protection there. Your communications with Amazon are certainly discoverable, and Amazon will certainly not think twice about turning them over if asked. So that's the first thing you want to be careful with. And so, like I said, work with a professional, I said, I prefer lawyers because again, we think about these things. We think about, what could the implications be beyond, whereas, the non-lawyer consultants tend to just, it's not their training. It's not their wheelhouse to think in that way. And if you're a member of our Seller Basics program, we're talking hundreds of dollars to get, these suspensions handled. We're not talking, one of these $10,000, that's the whole point of our program, is that you're not talking about one of these $10,000, multiple revisions and email to Jeff Bezos type matters, because as some of these other places do. But definitely be mindful of how you handle the plan of action side. That's one thing.
Yeah.
You have a deadline. It's a subpoena. If it's a subpoena, I would say prepare a response, prepare getting the data, get the information you need just so you have it ready. But you do need to talk to a lawyer. I certainly want to hear from you. So, there's certainly an open invitation, even if you don't want to retain me as your counsel in this issue. I do want to hear from you from the online merchant skills side. I'm trying really hard not to, to keep it reasonable, because again, I'm trying to make this an OMG issue and have OMG handle it. So, but I definitely want to hear from you. So please reach out to me, let me know, because I'm tracking as many of these as I can find. I want to know what states. I want to know whether you live in this state and got the subpoena, or whether you live in another state and another state sends you a subpoena. I'm trying to track I'm trying to get as much data as I can, because I want to show how extensive this is, because where I'm taking this next, or I hope to try to take this next, that's going to be important data. And it doesn't mean that you're sharing it with me will be in violation of, it's still confidential. I don't plan to just tell everybody about your, although some cases, these subpoenas are public records, so be mindful of that. So, some of these states have been really shameful in publishing these things publicly, and then people get, articles in the paper written about them, followed by death threats. So it's really shameful. But you definitely want to get legal counsel of some form or fashion, whether it's me or whether it's somebody else. But you want to talk to a lawyer. Like I said, what sets our firm apart from other law firms out there is that, again, understanding the intricacies of Amazon is how we make our arguments, right? Like writing that letter comes from how we know Amazon, not from me being the best lawyer in the world. I'm not there, I'm not saying I'm better or worse than any other lawyer. I'm just saying that it's our investment in understanding the Amazon business model that allows us to come up with the arguments that we do. And so that's kind of what sets us apart. We're certainly not the only law firm out there, but in this context, that's kind of our specialty. So, but no matter what you do, you're going to want to get counsel. These things are serious.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. In our situation, because like I said, we're putting ourselves out there and letting you know that I got one of these nasty letters from our Kentucky Attorney General, and some of the items they were requesting, I don't have permission to share. That Amazon owns the contact information. I don't necessarily, everything they asked for, if I had provided it, I would be violating my contract with Amazon. I didn't know that. But once I had this conversation, it's like you brought a lot of issues to our attention that, hey, I really do have to be careful about what I say here and what I don't say. And I can't just hand everything over blanketly and say, here you go. I trust that you'll do what's best for me, Attorney General. I know that Father knows best. I know better now. And it's
right. No, absolutely. It's an important point. And then that's not to say that again, sometimes when ordered by law, the terms and conditions would say that you might be able to turn it over. So, but you have to have that conversation ahead of time. Your lawyers need to have that discussion with the Attorney General to understand, okay, in what capacity am I being am I being asked to turn this over, or am I being ordered to turn this over? Am I being ordered to? Where's it going? Is this going to be made public information? Am I disclosing Amazon's data publicly? Am I going to be it's like, so you got to have those, again, you have to have somebody out there fighting for you and representing you. And so absolutely, there's just so many angles to this that, we had to deal with. Like I said, sit tight. I am working on trying to figure out what options there are to take action on behalf of the community. Because I do think that there's been about, like I said, eight states now, and I don't even know, 9 states. I'm trying to remember how many we're up to now that we've seen subpoenas from. In one case, criminal, misdemeanor, but criminal, which is ridiculous, but that's what they're doing. And be mindful that you may think that this is a civil matter because at the state level it's a civil, but you might have a criminal city ordinance that could be some other person in the state might be pursuing it. So even more reason to be careful about what you say. And like I said, look at the letter. I mean, you have defenses, and there's gonna be a time and a place to address those. But the more reason not to go alone, because I think for a lot of the people I've met before, I really put my mind to it and really thought about like, hey, what is going on here? Because, it really started to become an issue. You might conclude that, okay, they had me red-handed. I set this price at this, I set this commodity at this price. I must be guilty. It's like, it's not that simple. It never is. And like I said, same with sales tax, right? Well, I guess I had nexus because of Amazon FBA. No, you really didn't. It was a lot more complicated than sort of what people might think. And so that's why you need lawyers to help you. And like I said, our firm, we understand who our clients are. We're not the biggest law firms in the country. We're very much focused on being, affordable for Amazon sellers, because if we're not, nobody would hire us. So, we're efficient at what we do. We benefit from the fact that most of our clients' facts have or 80% overlap. Not all, there's still substantial differences, but that's kind of where we can use efficiencies to be reasonable and fees for what we have to charge when we have to charge versus, a big law firm. But you really, there's such a propensity in Amazon to want to do everything on your own. It's like, do my own LLC, do my own this. And it's like, it's never a good idea. It's like doing your own LLC. I always say, it's like, if you want a piece of paper that says LLC from the government, you win. If you want to make an S Corp election, you win. If you want limited liability for your personal assets and you did it on LegalZoom, not so fast, because you're setting yourself up for failure there. So, we always
talking directly to us, because we've done that nonsense stuff before, and I've learned my lessons before too. And I know that I've learned the lesson: let an expert do an expert's job. Just like Joe Public can't go out there and sell on Amazon as well as we can. And that's a horrible analogy, but
no, it's a great analogy, because you're absolutely right.
Expert's job, yeah.
How many of these brand owners will send these, cease and desist letters and try to knock off all the sellers on Amazon, only to find that, oh, there was something to having multiple people selling your products through Amazon, or there's a lot to selling on, the diverters that you're trying to stop are actually better at selling the product than you. It's like, there is a magic to it, to selling on Amazon. You're absolutely right. Just like, do what, a good business person delegates, and, do what you're good at. Don't try to go to law school overnight and tackle an issue that you may really not know anything about, or not enough to really address it the right way. Or even worse, come to a conclusion that's completely wrong and put yourself in worse jeopardy than you need it to be. And that is so common in the, like I said, that's just, it's so much parallel between this and sales tax, because so many of our clients, they read a blog on a tax software website, thought, oh, I get this, Nexus, so easy. And then next thing you know, now they're defending a $300,000 tax deficiency that, had they gotten better advice on the front end, they might have been able to avoid.
Yeah. And we're, of course, Nick and I, we're suspended right now. On top of the fact that we're suspended, we have a letter from our attorney general. So it can be a really scary place to be at. And it brought so much comfort to read how you were talking about Amazon likes to flip-flop between we're not a store and we are a store, and how if you view us, the third-party sellers, as suppliers to Amazon's store, it really does take the liability off of us, because Amazon has the ability to choose what states we can sell into and what prices we list things for.
Amazon has all the ability. Just this past week, they decided, hey, we're going to double the return period, right? So now they can take 60 days. Amazon didn't ask me.
No, right. It's their store.
All right.
Right. Absolutely. No. And that's, and please do not watch this and interpret this as like a license to go sell toilet paper for $700, because I'm saying that you have defenses.
Let's do it.
I'm not encouraging you to do that, but no, the states have created some serious problems here, because exactly your point and what we said is like, the problem with applying a price gouging law to an Amazon seller, even if they're in your state, is that they don't have that ability to control the price on a state-by-state basis. And so the example I like to use is the Florida hurricane. We're a Florida law firm, and I live in Florida. I don't live in Florida anymore, but I used to live in Florida and spend plenty of time in Florida. But the hurricane law, the price gouging law in Florida is very serious, especially after a hurricane, state of emergency is declared. right? So let's say you buy a hammer for $5 at Walmart, you're flipping it online for $20. Well, if Florida declares a state of emergency after a hurricane, your $20 hammer might be price gouging if you were selling it locally, but you're not selling it locally. You're selling it in a national store, and your customers might be from 49 other states where a $20 hammer is perfectly legal and legitimate because there is no national price gouging law. Every state has their own. And when Florida tries to impose their price gouging law in such a way that restricts your ability to sell in 49 other states, that's where you get into this whole commerce clause problem and this being an undue burden on interstate commerce. And that's where the constitutional issue rises. Whereas if you would try to apply that price gouging law to Amazon, who is the store, who certainly has the ability to either block or prevent the price of a commodity based on a specific state's law or to a specific customer who's logging in from a certain state or shipping destination from that state, right? That's how the law was meant to apply. That's why these price gouging laws are consumer protection laws. They're not meant to be applied further down sort of the chain, the stream of commerce or through the supply chain. They're supposed to be meant really to be applied at the point of sale to the consumer. And they're really meant to be applied to transactions that are wholly intrastate, so that, if your house is destroyed after a hurricane, you have no food, you have no water, and you walk to the local 7-Eleven and they want $300 for a bottle of water, right? That's what the law is meant to prevent. It's not necessarily meant to prevent e-commerce, where you might have to wait 5 days or 6 days from now to get the product. I mean, it's just so illogical the way they're trying to apply these laws. And what the states are doing is it seems like they've all gotten together and sort of taken a coordinated effort to sort of create a quasi-national price gouging law by each going after their own sellers, but kind of punishing them. I don't think it works. I really don't. But again, not a license to go and price toilet paper for $700 on Amazon. Besides, you'll probably get suspended anyway. I'm just saying that, again, it's like, you're not a lawyer. People watching this, so if you get that letter, you're not thinking about this stuff this way. This is what lawyers do. In fact, a lot of lawyers I know don't even realize this and are quite surprised to even think about it that way because they just don't know Amazon. And a lot of lawyers I talk to are very kind of impressed, like, wow, I didn't even think about that, because it's just not. First of all, commerce law is a very quirky area of the law that not that many lawyers even think about, but it just happens to be really relevant for Amazon.
Yeah, I do. I really think that's what sets you all apart from other lawyers out there, and even other e-commerce lawyers out there, is the fact that you were a seller.
When Jeff still is.
The intricacies of the platform and how it works. But I want to make sure I get to people's questions, because I know some people have been sending questions in. Let me get rid of my teenagers.
It really got really dark in my office. I realized it's like so. I apologize if I look like a vampire. I don't normally look. It was bright, like the sun was still up, and then it just gone. And I guess that's what happens every day. But for some reason, I'm acting as if it's surprising. Sorry, but
let the sun go. Hey, as an Amazon seller, you never know what's going to happen from day to day. So let's see here. Hi guys. Sorry, I didn't say hi. Let's see. So our friend Robert has a question. He says, if a seller always priced toilet paper for $20 a roll, never raised their price, could that legally be gouging just because the circumstances around them changed?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, some of the laws are so weird, but theoretically, no, it shouldn't be gouging. If it's been that, if that's the price you've been selling, it's your private label toilet paper brand and you sell $20 toilet paper, or you just always sold it for $20. No, I mean, you have a strong argument to say that's part of what the states are looking for, to see, okay, where did your prices change? So they're looking for, like, what was your situation like 30 days ago? So they look like a 30-day average, but every state's law is different. So I can't speak in one specific state, but in a lot of states that have pricing gouging laws, they do look at the 30-day average. So, there is an argument there. But even the fact that you raise your price again, because I know in my point earlier, I was talking about how $20 hammers could be, price gouging suddenly. Theoretically, if there was a market for $20 hammers in 49 other states, just not Florida, and you raise your price from 10 to 20, that should still be allowable, because again, a Florida law cannot restrict my ability to do business, my personal take on this, in 49 other states. That's where the extraterritoriality component comes in. And that's where it starts to become invalid, because it's like you're trying to limit my ability to sell in a transaction that's really an out-of-state transaction. My sale of a hammer to a New Yorker has nothing to do with the Florida law. But to your original question, yeah, I mean, a lot of states will look to see the average prices, and they want to see that movement. They're looking for that movement. Did you move your prices up? But some states might say an unconscionable price. That's kind of the problem, is that, again, a lot of these states without the price gouging laws are saying an unconscionable price is an unconscionable price, right? There's no price gouging specific moment that they're invoking. They're just saying that anytime you sell something at an unconscionable price, it's price gouging. And we're seeing that in a few states right now, especially the ones that don't have a specific state of emergency law. And so, yeah, theoretically, they could say that $20 was always unconscionable. And that's why I'm saying this is a bigger issue than just, even if you're not getting that letter, this is for everybody. Because like I said in the letter, if you buy a bathing suit on Boston, if in Massachusetts in November, and resell it online, and it goes to a customer in Florida where a bathing suit might be needed in November or December, and you make 2,000% profit because you get a 90% clearance, right? Is that price gouging because you earn 2,000%? Is it price gouging because somebody's willing to pay for the convenience of having it on Amazon? I mean, all of those questions are coming into play, and that's why this is a bigger issue than just the people who've received the subpoenas. Everybody, and that's why so many of our clients are coming to us saying, like, I'm scared to sell anything, even if I didn't get the subpoena, because I was selling video games or I was selling this. It's like everybody's afraid to sell because, like, is that price gouging? It's a scary time. So the short answer to your question is maybe. It depends. It depends on the state. It depends on how aggressive the government wants to be, how unconscionable they find your price. And again, that all raises constitutional law issues on the vagueness question. It's like, well, how do we function if we don't know? What does that even mean, unconscionable price? But and so it's TBD. But that's certainly, the states are open to taking that interpretation that a price could have been unconscionable even if you didn't change it.
Yeah. I think someone else asked this question, and it's kind of been mine too, is do you foresee other states coming after sellers who don't live in their state? So do you see us possibly getting a subpoena from Texas or California because we sold products to those states during a state of emergency?
So that's actually something I'm trying to prevent. I almost wish that did happen. Honestly, I wish that had happened. That would have been actually really great, because that would have really opened the door to some other actions. But it hasn't happened yet. My thinking is that the AGs kind of got together and decided we're all going to take care of our own, because it seems like a very coordinated effort among the state attorney general's offices. They seem like they're all kind of doing this. So I don't expect it. I did see one of the states subpoenas, I think it was Missouri, that made a reminder that all the data you turn over to them theoretically could be shared with other state governments or the federal government. Again, all the more reason to get legal counsel when you're addressing the subpoenas. Is one thing we do when we look at subpoenas, we look at the question, and we're going to answer it in a way where, do you need to give up? It may say we want all of your sales, but does Florida necessarily need to know what my Missouri sales were, or does Missouri need to know what my Kansas sales were? Those are all questions that we can, but you can't just do it. There's ways you have to address the question and objections you have to raise, to make sure that, you're not lying or being misleading, but you're taking a position that, this is what we want to give you. So, all the more reason not to necessarily give that data. But, I guess I could see a state trying to do that. It raises another jurisdictional question under the due process clause, which is actually also very similar to tax, about whether or not selling on Amazon can subject you to the jurisdiction of another state. And I think I genuinely believe it cannot, based on a number of Supreme Court cases out there, even if you use FBA, which is why the whole sales tax nexus thing was so frustrating for me, because there's another component to nexus other than what the sales tax people said, called the due process clause. And unlike having a website, selling through Amazon, you're lacking a certain purposeful availment of, directing your activity towards one state, because again, you're just shipping things off to Amazon, you're placing them into the stream of commerce, but you don't really there's not as much of a purposeful availment and or direction towards any one state. Everything's done at Amazon's direction.
Right,
so
right.
It raises constitutional jurisdiction questions that certainly could be argued to say that they can't do that. And I do expect more states to come online. And do keep in mind, there was a federal executive order signed on price gouging, which also disturbs me. but that was very recent. That's like in the last 3 days. So, even more the reason not to get cute with your pricing now, because I'm saying, hey, constitutional defense, because this is a state law component. At the federal level, it's a different story. If there was a federal component, right, and I'm not sure an executive order counts for price gouging. I have other issues because that's purely Congress's domain to regulate interstate commerce. And theoretically, if there's going to be a federal price gouging law, but there's also certain powers that the president can invoke in times of emergency. So we don't know, but now would not be the time to get cute with pricing. Again, we do need to get some clarity on this, and it starts with the states persecuting people for the various state laws. And I think to the extent we have to address the executive order is another story, but there was an executive order, I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago that was issued, or maybe 5 days ago. So really now is the time not to be pricing toilet paper at $700 if you can get away with it.
Did you hear that, Robert?
Yeah, Robert, don't do it.
No $700 toilet paper.
Yeah, we're not advocating it. We're not, again, a lot of these queries are looking at times when there weren't state of emergencies addressed, or maybe there were, and maybe there was a few transactions after the state of emergency was declared in the state, but for the most part, the sales were happening before. In some cases, like I said, there is no state of emergency law. The further back in time this happened, at least in terms of where your defense is, the better. Again, overall, I do think there's a constitutional law defense no matter what, but layering on the fact that you've got this federal executive order issued by the president, I'm a little concerned about that too. And so again, it's another thing we have to address, but I think even there, I think I'm not exactly sure what the concern is there in terms of, obviously, if I were you in this environment, I really wouldn't play in the hand sanitizer space. I wouldn't play in the mask space, and just try to stay out of the essentials category. If you're in the food category, stick with the prices you normally stick with for now. Like the person was saying before, I mean, the safest thing you can do other than not selling is just stick to your average prices for the last 6 months. If you can prove your costs went up, that's a different story. If you can prove that, hey, I used to buy peanut butter from Trader Joe's for $3 a bottle, but now that Trader Joe's wants $6, so I have to charge X. So there's opportunity. Then you have a justification for a potential price increase. And again, I still think it all falls on Amazon to be the arbiter of this, which, is a good and a bad thing, because they're going to obviously, make it harder for people to sell. So we got to be careful, but, just, focus on selling at the prices that you're normally accustomed to selling for now. And try not to go for too many price increases. But of course you're allowed to take into account your shipping costs, things like that. So, don't worry about that. But yeah, it's a scary time, and it's why, like I said, I'm trying to tackle this one thing at a time. But we're trying to bring an action to challenge these laws, because they are really ticking me off. Because it to me, this is blatantly unconstitutional, and something has to be done.
Absolutely. So obviously, one of the best things people can do to support other sellers and support you is to become a member of the Online Merchants Guild. And it's onlinemerchantsguild.org, right?
Correct. OnlineMerchantsGuild.org. Absolutely join. And just so people understand what we do is, like, I don't pay myself. This is a volunteer effort. Okay. I mean, if I have to fly to Sacramento to meet with the government, that's that is a reimbursed expense. I'm pretty reasonable with that stuff. I mean, I try to be as efficient as possible, because it's money that's meant, in my opinion, to go towards pushing the issue. I don't like to spend money on flashy websites. It's why our member portal doesn't work, and don't even bother asking me about that. I'm just trying to make sure we have the money we need to hire the lawyers we need when we need to hire the lobbyists we need when we need to just get stuff done. That's what we're trying to do. So that was my commitment in our FAQ from day one, is that we're just right now at this stage only focused on, spending the minimal amount of money required to keep the website up and running. So whatever it costs to have WordPress or whatever hosting. But mainly the money that we're asking you to contribute is going towards, it's almost like, it's like a Kickstarter. It's like, or a GoFundMe. We're trying to crowdsource the legal resources, the money we need for the legal resources, because we're going to have to hire some litigators. We're going to have to hire some big guns. You know, it's one thing for me to spend a weekend writing a letter. It's another thing to go and bring a federal case. As they don't call it a federal case for nothing. It is a federal case, you know. So we need to bring some big guns into play. And so we do need to raise some money to do that. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. But we should all be doing our part and getting involved and putting together a coordinated effort to start pushing back on these price gouging laws and putting the pressure on Amazon. And again, it just goes to also, even if you're not a reseller, even if you're just private label, it's like, it's the bigger picture is like, why does Amazon get away with everything? Why is it that whenever Amazon does something, they can always either push the blame onto the sellers or claim that they're not the store? I mean, it's just every time they take advantage of us, it just gets old. So we need to take these opportunities to really push back and let government know that, hey, we're the voters, not Amazon. Amazon's one company that doesn't have any vote, right? We're the voters in your state. Right. There are thousands and thousands. In California, there's 174,000 of you in one state. And we want people to listen to us and have our interests at heart, as we're the in-state people, we're the voters, we're the businesses, we're the people who hire people, just like Amazon, and really do something for us for a change and stop trying to get another headquarters out of Amazon. I mean, how many headquarters are going to be already? 50? We're tired of it. Okay. And we need to let our politicians know that we're really tired of this whole, you know, Amazon can get away with anything because they create headquarters and jobs that'll eventually be replaced by drones in a couple of years' time, as soon as they can get away with it. So enough. So.
I think we have a few more questions. I want to say thank you for your time, obviously. I know you're really trying to take on the cause for the people that have gotten these attorney general letters. And you've made such a generous offer by telling people just to reach out to you to tell you about it so you can advocate for sellers more. What would be the best way for somebody to get a hold of you to let them know about a letter they got from maybe a state that you haven't heard from yet?
Yeah, even if it's a state we heard from, like if it's a state I mentioned, I want to know, because I'm just trying to keep tally of it. If it's a subpoena, if you're going to send a subpoena to me, please send it to Paul at Ecom Attorneys. It's ECOM-attorneys.com, and I'll explain why. The reason I want you to send it to my law firm website, which is Paul at ecomattorneys.com or Paul at FRSattorneys.com, is because I want to make sure it's attorney-client privilege so that your confidentiality is protected. Okay. As Online Merchants Guild, you know, again, I believe our members are protected. I believe our confidentiality is protected in terms of, you know, it's a freedom of association. It's First Amendment right. I don't expect any government to like try to bust us up and make us disclose who our members are or anything of that nature. And I'm confident there. But if you send the subpoena to Online Merchants Guild, you may not have the attorney-client privilege that. Whereas at least if you're offering it to my law firm, even if you don't hire me, if it's just considered intake, right? That initial email to a lawyer, that initial back and forth, right? Where you're considering hiring a lawyer, that's always considered intake, and that's subject to attorney-client privilege. So if you do have a subpoena to send me or something like that, you know, send it to my law firm email address, which is Paul at Ecom Attorneys. If you have any other questions, if it's about the guild or about what we do, or if you want to get involved or be, you know, we're looking, like I said, we're looking for all sorts of people to help out. People who are good at WordPress right now would be really helpful, because I think our website sucks and we could do better. People who have time to help us be in better contact with our members, or blog for us, or help us draft, you know, any type of skill set you have that you think would be useful for our organization. We're looking for you to help out, because again, I don't want to spend the money that is contributed on that stuff, because I'm trying to spend it on the important stuff like the lawyers, lobbyists, what we need to spend the money on. So that's where we can use your volunteer help, and certainly looking for people who want to take a leadership role. If this is something you want to do, if you've always wanted to be an advocate, reach out to us, let us know that's something you want to do, and let's talk about getting you plugged in and how we can help. All right.
Okay, and that's Ecom Attorneys, plural, .com.
Yeah, Paul at ecomattorneys.com, and then Paul at onlinemerchantsguild.org if you want to reach me through the Online Merchants Guild.
Okay. And I think the only other question I saw was, so obviously if you get a subpoena, you should
do an interview.
Yeah, you should do an interview.
The New York Times, right?
No, don't do an interview.
Yeah, bad idea, right? I mean, the media, and part of what this letter, I'm working on a press release strategy. You know, and I'll talk more about that later, but there's another group that's been really supportive, and I just don't know 100% if I can mention them right now, but I imagine I can. I think I should. So I'll come back and mention it maybe later as soon as I get the green light, or in a post. But there's another group out there that's been super supportive of us, and we work closely with and really great people. And so we're helping get a press release. But I am trying to change the media's approach on this. Part of the letter for me, not that the media is going to read the 12-page letter. They don't have time for that. So I need to get it condensed into a press release and work with some resources that have been offered to us to help get that out there, because we're trying to change the media's viewpoint that, all this time you're just shaming these people for selling thousands. But did you really take time to look at Amazon's role in this? How, the automatic pricers that many Amazon sellers use could have been shut. You could have shut off that portion, that part of the API to prevent, the panic that the automatic pricers caused because they kept clipping up. All the things Amazon could have done to prevent the panic pricing that ensued in their marketplace. But, the media has been just so quick to blame, just to make shame stories out of these people. It's just a bit tiring. So we're trying to, first change the viewpoint from the media by press releasing our message. And hopefully that'll be a good starting point, but definitely you don't want to be in any newspaper. And certainly if a newspaper contacts you, feel free to contact me and I will talk to the press, but on your behalf, I'm happy to do that again through Online Merchants Guild. We deal with the press all the time. Put my name in Google. You'll see I get the newspaper a lot. I was even in that Amazon documentary for 5 seconds for what it was worth, the one on PBS. But I'm happy to help you with the press, but don't go it alone, because it's a setup. They're trying to, every single person who's talked to the press has just gotten nailed, and you really have to, you don't want to do that. So feel free to, any emails or inquiries from the press, feel free to refer it to me. I can have a conversation with them, or we can just choose not to. But again, I'm trying to change the story and put the alternative perspective out there, because I think it's time to hear our side of the story.
Yeah. Well, I really, really appreciate you talking to us and everybody that's here. I'm sure we'll get more questions later on after people get a chance to watch this. So maybe we'll try to have you on again as things start to develop more and more through this. And I'll definitely put links to the Online Merchants Guild and your email in this. But can you think of anything else we should ask?
Is there anything, because you're the expert, is there anything that you can think of that wasn't covered that's pretty urgent? Because I know that you fielded questions from so many people lately anyway. Is there any other message you'd like to deliver?
No, I mean, I think we covered the main points. Again, the goal is just to give you the perspective that, the price gouging thing is not as cut and dry, that there's serious legal defects in it, that, not to go it alone.
Media
help. Definitely not the way to go, is to go it alone. We're going to have to come up with a concerted effort to challenge this. And I'm working on the solutions, how we're going to pursue a challenge. Once I kind of have that, I'm going to probably communicate more with you. I'll communicate more with Gay and Gary about how we can raise what we need to raise to take the fight back to the government and really push back, because we got to do something. This cannot be the way it is from now on, because it's putting too many things at risk. Even in times of non-emergency, it's opening up the floodgates for all sorts of new potential threats to the selling economy, and we got to do something about that. So stay tuned. We'll definitely have more.
Awesome.
There you go, Paul Rafelson, everybody. That's a real deal.
Awesome.
We appreciate
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Talk to you soon. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.